Thursday night reasoning session, Belizean workers' rights. I'm the host, Yaya Marin Coleman, and the co-host is our brother, Dean Flowers, who's currently the president of the Public Service Union. Good night, brother Dean.
Good night, Sister Yaya. Blessings once again. Thanks to the Most High for bringing us through safely through another week and for the opportunity to dialogue and share knowledge, share opinions, and grow again, and strengthen we laborers. That's the whole objective. Organize, organize, organize.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. I agree with you totally on everything you said. And so the beautiful part about the reasoning is that it's available on YouTube for your. This is session 7, I think. Session 6. Episode 6. Episode 6, right, Trish? I believe it's episode 6 tonight. And it's a space where Belizean workers ought to visit, become engaged with, because it's about your rights and responsibilities as workers in Belize. And tonight's conversation will be rooted in the Belize City Council phasing out of employees at age who are at 55 years of age and over. The laws of Belize gives the Belize City Council the legal right to do that. As I believe it's a total of 53 employees who were notified in late June that they will be phased out from beginning today, July 1st, through the end of maybe September, I believe it is. And how shocking that is to be given such short notice, being elders during COVID-19 pandemic. As the president of the Christian Workers Union, Most High, said in an interview to the media, and of those 53 people, 33 of them are members of the Christian Workers Union. And so, Brother Dean, I don't know how much time you had to prepare. It's our responsibility as workers to learn our rights. So even if you're not even in the workforce yet, you need to begin to learn this information, if you don't already know it, that at age 55, when you work for the government of Belize, or any employer, because age 55 is the retirement age for the government sector and private sector, right, Brother Dean?
55 is some statutory bodies. I know, such as let me say the retirement age in the public service is 55 years. However, some statutory bodies do in fact extend that to 60 years.
Extended to 60 years, some statutory bodies. I see you have one company tonight. A future worker of Belize.
Yeah, hopefully. Well, the man promised me and buy me and pick up, so I'm really hoping that he will be a productive citizen.
I'm sure he'll contribute. I'm sure he will. And so, understanding that 55 years within the government service is retirement age, I don't know if there's any training for employees in the government service, Brother Dean, let's say at age 50, so that people may begin to prepare to understand what the process is at age 55, when it's your birthday, what happens next. Is there any type of training or awareness for government employees, let's say at age 50? Do you know, Brother Dean?
Yeah, no, there isn't any. And as a matter of fact, what the most recent trade dispute with the government and the joint unions has revealed is that there is a need and an urgent need for the government to start engaging, or for public officers to start engaging in financial planning. We lack financial literacy, and this is not a labor problem. This is not an employee problem. This is a national crisis that starts with cabinet and the Ministry of Finance and trickles right down, as my good brother Philip Tate, who has just joined us, always remind us. that every entity, every organization in Belize is a microcosm of what happens on Capitol Hill. And so sadly, there is absolutely no plan in place. There is no financial literacy program in place that when a young worker enters the system, or when you're about to reach, as you rightly questioned, the age of 50, that somebody would sit with you and explain to you that, look, in 5 years' time, you're going to arrive at retirement. What's your financial status? And I think that is the saddest part about this situation that is unfolding and that will unfold, or that has begun to unfold at the Belize City Council. Because what is ironic here is that, and I'm reading an article here from the Amandala, whereby the current council is stating that there was no tactical plan in place to address the aging workforce, accrued entitlements like gratuity and severance, and the projected increase in monthly pensions. But the fact that you're saying that this did not exist and does not exist should therefore guide you to soften the blow on these citizens who are no longer young. These are old people, and pretty much what you're doing is putting them out in the cold. And the saddest part about this is that these people aren't earning a whole lot of money. These people are the one that is doing the kind of work that hardly anybody wants to do. So it shows a side of inhumanity and inconsideration on the part of the Belize City Council, in my humble opinion.
Definitely, the Belize City Council is concerned about the possibility of being liable for severance payment the longer these people, these elders, and I don't even want to say elders because I'm 55 this year, and so these are people from ages 55 to 60 years old. You're still in the prime of your life, really, unless you may be having some health issues. And in an interview that I read with the Christian Workers Union President Mos Hyde, he also said that a number of these people came from when Belize City Council had contracted out some of their labor to private sanitation companies. And so a number of these workers who are now being phased out because they're over at age 55 or older will not, some of them did not have the required amount of years to receive the severance pay. So how does that work, Brother Dean? If I got employed at age 50 and I've worked for 5 years, do you have any idea what a severance pay at the lowest pay scale rate could be compared to somebody who may have entered the government service at age 30? And so many people, even those who work with the government service, until there's a reason for them to go and query it, do not have any idea what their exit package may look like. Or for people who are not even in the workforce, for government, because we, the Belizean people, are the ones who pay their severance pay in taxes, for example. And so if you could shed some light on that so people could understand the dollars and cents. The Belize City Council said in there, and there's a press release, I sent it to Trish. Let me just pull up the press release real quick as I allow Brother Dean some time to look for that information. This press release was sent out on Wednesday, June 23rd. And it says, in 2018, the Belize City Council became aware that there were approximately 50 employees who had reached the retirement age and that there was no tactical plan in place to address the aging workforce, accrued entitlements like gratuity or severance, and the projected increase in monthly pensions. By the end of 2021, that number will grow to about 70 employees, with gratuity payments estimated at 500,000, and by 2024 that number will increase to approximately 100 employees, about 25% of council's workforce, with an estimated gratuity liability of $1.4 million. Thanks, Trish. So definitely the council is looking at the dollars and cents of having employees ages 55 and older remaining a part of the Belizean workforce. And what's also said in that press release is that a number of these aging people have difficulty adjusting to the requirements of their work. So, do you have that information ready, Brother Dean, to share with us? Your mic is not on.
In terms of severance due to them, just recently I was looking at that. I don't have it here in front of me. I was interested in pulling it up, but what I can tell you is that several open vote workers from within the public service were recently terminated following the change of administration. And this is a hot button issue for them because there is a disagreement between the union who represents these workers and the accountant general, where the interpretation of the labor laws is concerned. Now, the Labor Act was amended, and I believe it's okay, it's got this. I'm looking at the Gazette here, and it's saying gazetted 5th of January 2002. And what that attempted to do is to ensure that open vote workers enjoy the same benefits as a permanently established workers where severance packages is concerned, or superannuity benefits is concerned, which includes severance as well as gratuity. Now, what I saw when I was looking at that and in my conversation with our IRO is, I believe after I may be able to read directly from severance pay. Yeah, okay. Where an employee who has been continuously employed by any employer for a period of 5 to 10 years, and his employment is terminated by the employer, or the worker retires on or after attaining the age of 60 years or on medical grounds, that worker shall be paid a severance pay of 1 week's wages in respect to each completed year of service. Over 10 years, and his employment is terminated by the employer for reasons which do not amount to dismissal, or ended because the worker retires on or after attaining the age of 60 years or on medical grounds. 3, the worker abandons the service of the employer for good or sufficient cause, or a worker who resigns after a minimum of 10 years is eligible for gratuity equal to severance pay, or terminated on the expiration of a contract for a definite period, that worker shall be paid a severance pay of 2 weeks' wages in respect of each complete year of service. So under 10 years, 5 to 10 years, over 5 years, but let me start again. Over 5 years and up to 10 years, 1 week per year. After 10 years, 2 weeks per year. So that is pretty much what these individuals, in accordance to what I'm reading here, would be entitled to. Yeah.
Again, one more time, brother, because I really want to make sure our those who are with us tonight. Hi, good night, Ella and brother Philip. And for those who will listen in the future, understands what you just said.
Yeah, severance pay, 5 to 10 years. So if you've worked over 5 years, but up until 10 years, you're entitled to 1 week per year. All right, in severance. And if you have gone over 10 years, you're entitled to 2 weeks per year. Provided that your service, of course, has been continuous and that you're being terminated and that your termination does not amount to dismissal. All right. The sad part, and I trust that the employees at the Belize City Council will receive their severance benefits in accordance with the law. But sadly, the employees within the public sector who were recently terminated under this administration may very well have to go to court to get that payment, because the accountant general via a memo or a memo or circular that she recently wrote to our union is that
Good evening.
they're not entitled to that
Just so that you know, the secretary hasn't opened up his mic as yet. I think we will allow you to.
Brother Tate, I think your mic is, yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Brother Dean, can you be specific when you say the recent employees from the government who were terminated? Sometimes people may only be listening to this episode and have no backstory on what you may be referring to.
So when the government administration changed in November of 2020, they quickly went after open vote workers, and hundreds, if not thousands, I think we're already past 1,000 open vote workers.
What an open vote worker is?
Okay, an open vote worker is simply a worker that is hired under the General Workers Regulation. There are three legislation under which workers are hired within the public service. Well, four really. There is the Public Service Regulations, which governs permanently established workers. There's the General Workers Regulation, which governs what we refer to as open vote workers, who should in reality be temporary workers. Unfortunately, because of the politicization of the public service, these temporary employees have turned into permanent employees. And that in itself is another legal issue because the GWR is clear what a open vote worker should be. And it was never intended for them to be permanent or in continuous employment. And that's why I said that in my humble view and non-legal opinion, these people have a strong case within a court of law. And we have seen that in previous judgments as well. So, but in addition to that, what we're seeing here in this amendment, and I'm trying to see which part of the amendment I can probably read here for the benefit of those listening. Okay, so it says Regulation 29 of the Government Open Vote Workers Regulation, as amended by Statutory Instrument 69 of 1997, is hereby repealed and replaced by the following. 29, subject to the Pensions Act and the Pensions Regulation, every open vote worker who has been in the public service under the government of Belize for 10 years or more may be granted on retirement or resignation retirement benefits in accordance with the Pension Act and the Pension Regulation. Retirement benefits awarded under Subregulation 1, and I won't read the part about that in harness, shall be computed using the same formula provided by the Pensions Act and the Pensions Regulations for other pensionable officers. And those other pensionable officers, of course, would be the permanently established officers. And so the issue there is that it speaks about
for those who may just be joining us, this evening's conversation, as I allow Brother Dean to do some research so that he may continue to teach us, we're talking about the phase-out retirement of council staff is the focus. On the 23rd of June, I believe a press release was sent out saying that there will be a phased out retirement of employees 55 years and over, regardless of what type of work they're doing at the Belize City Council. It says impacts all employees who is 55 years and older at all pay scales, including management and across all council departments. The 53 employees are expected to be phased out. A number of those employees work in, the majority of them are in the operational support department as maintenance workers. 33 of the 53 employees are Christian Workers Union members. You ready, Brother Dean?
Yeah. Yeah, so the keywords here that is being played upon is that it says if you've been working with the government for 10 years or more, may be granted on retirement or resignation, right? That is the tricky thing there, on retirement or resignation. Now, severance pay, as we read earlier, says that you shall be entitled to these benefits if your employment is terminated by the employer and that termination does not amount to dismissal. Now, these individuals were terminated. And so in accordance with what we're reading from the Labor Act, they're entitled to it. But when you look at the amendment did not mention termination, that they would be entitled to it. The amendment mentioned that they may be granted on his retirement or his resignation. And so that is what they're using to deny these people their benefits. That the act does not speak to termination, but speaks to retirement and pension. But the intention of the law was to ensure that open vote workers enjoy the same benefits as permanently established workers. So yeah, that's another legal battle that we will see unfolding within our courts shortly. But coming back to the topic at hand, which involves primarily these 50 plus workers of the Bangladesh City Council. I think that there was a sorry, the Belize City Council, sorry. I am of the view of the opinion that there was a better way by which this could have been handled. And while I support the fact, and I understand the fact, that the Belize City Council also must safeguard its financial position, I believe that they should have phased this thing out, not necessarily using the phased approach that they're using, but using a phased retirement approach. So they could have immediately caused these individuals to start working perhaps less hours, so that the shock of receiving no salary would have been minimized by having them receiving less salary over time. So you could have said to them, look, for the next 6 months, or for the next, perhaps for the next 6 months, because let's not forget that we're also in the middle of a pandemic whereby employment is hard to come by. So you could have phased their retirement over a 6-month period to say, rather than working a full day, you will be working reduced hours. You could have achieved several things here. You could have safeguarded the livelihood of these people over 6 months so that they can make that gradual adjustment with a reduced salary, as well as starting to plan their life around their pensionable benefits. At that same time, you would have been bringing in new employees to replace them, because clearly they have to be replaced. And you would be able to attain the transfer of knowledge with the work that they're doing. So the council would have also been in a better position with the new employees, who would have been there to observe and to learn from these senior employees who would have been phased out gradually over time. What we will experience now is a sudden shock that will be brought upon these vulnerable citizens when they're just put out to pasture, as has taken place with the first set, as you rightly mentioned, effective yesterday.
Do you anticipate that there will be more experiences like these, maybe at other councils throughout the country?
Well, it's not even a matter of feeling. I can tell you that there is also what I would categorize as mass termination that has occurred within the Benke Municipal Authority, Benke Tong Board. I was contacted by some employees there. They reached out to myself too late because their intention was to what would be the best approach for the employees within the Benke municipality to unionize themselves. And they had asked if we could have conducted a meeting with them, and they were supposed to organize the workers from the Benke Thong board for us to have this meeting, and that was unable to happen for whatever reason. They simply weren't able to organize themselves for us to go in and have a conversation about unionizing. And before you knew it, when the individual contacted me back, there were some 20 odd of them that had received their letters. I know Ivan Williams has taken up their case because they are also being denied benefits due to them. And what the Benke Tong board, as I understand it, is trying to do to them is to negotiate a settlement. So if it is that they would have had $10,000 for an individual, for argument's sake, understand that they called them into a meeting and said, look, we have $10,000 for you. We are not denying you that, but we would like to pay this to you over 5 years. And so when they did the calculation, these people are saying, look, I would have been receiving maybe $100 or $200 per month for 3, 4, 5 years for what is due to me. And so that is the reason why I understand that they're now taking the Benke Tong board to court to get their money up front, or to get a settlement that could assist in their survival. You can't owe me $10,000 and want to give me $100 per month and expect me to survive like that. Because like I said, what's happening here is that it's a shock. You stop the income. In the case of, if we look at if we draw an analogy of what happened in the public service with the 10%, that's an adjustment. It's not a sudden shock on thousands of employees. So people may be able to gradually recover from that 10% cut, unlike if you just cut their income or give them the minimum that you wish to give them. So it's not a matter of if it will happen within other municipalities. It has started. And I can tell you here in Belmopan, latest information to me is that most of the employees who have 20 plus years or in excess of 10 and 15 years, I understand a whole group of them have been placed on leave, vacation leave. And I assume this is all laying the foundation to dismiss them and to reduce and this is of course just my assumption here. This is not facts, but I think if they were to dismiss them immediately, the payout would be huge because a lot of them have a lot of accrued vacation leave. And so the assumption here from most of these employees is that they're forcing them to go on leave so that they can exhaust all their leave. And then when they come back, they will simply serve them their dismissal letters. So I will say this, I know we have some people from the CW. I think the CW will be very busy over the next 6 months where these unfair, unjust, and frankly, inconsiderate terminations are concerned.
Respect, we're at the 7:30 mark, and I know Trish was having some challenges with her computer. Cynthia Fitzmusler contacted me, said, there you go, my people. I sent a picture to Trish and asked her to show. We have a picture of the employees who are being phased out. So at this point, we open up, it's open mic, and we usually let Brother Dean handles the open mic session. Brother Dean, it's all yours.
Yeah, so to those individuals who were just recently let into the room, I want to apologize. Our host is experiencing some difficulties. We know the internet connection in Belize is not the most stable. And of course, we're experiencing some wet weather, so that complicates things. So I didn't notice that we had several people in the waiting room. So my apologies for that. So the discussion here tonight, brothers and sisters, surrounds the phase retirement of the employees within the Belize City Council, and the first group went home yesterday. I think that was and so we were simply discussing the different approaches that the Belize City Council could have taken to soften the blow, or what I am calling the shock, to these people's livelihood. And my suggestion is that they should have phased the retirement over perhaps a 6-month period, whereby they could have reduced the working hours of these individuals so that they could have gradually made that adjustment into retirement, rather than cutting them off at a specific point in time. And then what complicates things is that most of these people are over the age of 55 and 60. So it shows again that we have little or no consideration for our aging population. And so so we have spoken a bit also of some of the difficulty that public officers or open vote workers who were recently terminated, some of the difficulty that they're having in collecting their benefits as well. And the firings that we see happening within other municipalities. And of course, Sister Yaya asked the question whether or not it is expected that we'll see other mass firings happening. And my response is, of course, it's happening. And it's happening in Benke, and we will soon see it happening here in Belmopan, where I reside. So it's open mic. Feel free to jump in, and let's discuss how perhaps somebody has a good idea in terms of how we can perhaps help those employees who, as I stated, are elderly folks that are now being put to pasture. So feel free, would appreciate if you can raise your hand and join the conversation.
Brother Hebert, you ever come forward in your camera so we can see your face good?
I tell her I can't. I tell her already. I told her I'll go already. This didn't work, but anyway, been you are. So I know I think I tell her lie again, no. So, but I very dark.
Good now. We can see you good. Stay right there, teacher.
Listen, I think a thing that we need to talk about here really and truly have to do with this fact that for quite some years now, there have been talk about passing what they call a law similar to that of the public service for those persons who work in municipal services, like city councils and so forth. And me, at one point, it reached a point where Mr. Godwin House got up in the House to actually waive a document which was purporting to be the new, it was a bill, it was really a bill that was going through the House. And the impression given was that, in fact, the bill was being passed, when in fact it was not. But the point, though, is that in that bill itself, that document, I have a copy of the document actually, it was really a legislation which was now going to legalize the whole matter of the employment of those persons who work in those city councils and town councils. And ever since then, there's been not much talk about it, but really it is there. That's something we have to fight for as a union, to have those persons who work in the municipal services better, having a better tenure of service, because right now they work on a collective bargaining agreement, having a law to protect them and also to to actually to fortify the collective bargaining agreement will be better. So I think that's the way we need to go. We need to go just as there is a what they call a public service regulations. There has to be a municipal service regulations, which would help those persons who work in those areas, and they will not then be fired as arbitrary as they are right now. No, thanks.
Thank you, Brother Hubert. And Sister Yaya, that goes back to our conversation that we had last week with Brother Young. The ILO Convention C-158 again, another major and big issue for the trade union movement to move on and push on, and I just want to not necessarily sidetrack, but another just a comment that I want to make in regards to the OSH bill, which again we have to address. I was reading something earlier today which highlighted that if we had the OSH in place, whereby employers would have had a duty to ensure that they provide an environment that is hazard-free. And of course, when we look at the COVID-19 pandemic, that is constituted as a hazard within the workplace. But if we had the OSH in place, mechanisms via the OSH would have created a safe working environment. Thereby, we wouldn't have had to have been having a conversation about forcing people to get a vaccine, which of course infringes on their fundamental rights. But I know it's a bit off from the topic, but I just had to throw that in, that there's a lot of work to do by the trade union movement.
Is there anything else that someone would like to share tonight? It doesn't have to be on topic, as long as it's Belizean workers related interest, concern. All the time, open mic right now. Well, I guess we could continue reasoning until others may choose to participate by asking a question. You could put something in the chat, or listening is an active way of participating as well. So, Brother Hubert, you remember what year it was that, oh, Sister Jane with Sister Fitz. Brother Hubert, do you remember what year it was that Garden House had waived that document in the house?
I think it would have been very close to 4 or 5 years ago, or thereabout. I think it's more like 4 or 5 years ago. I have a document actually. I have a copy of it. Because there was much work on it, and it's quite advanced. It was almost, it was said to have been implemented, but it was not. A lot of workers got excited because they thought it was it already happened, but it hadn't happened. It was the exception that they used, and but it is something which we have to work on. I believe the Congress has to take it up, because we have had a situation where every time there's a change of government, workers at the council, more than all other workers, they tend to they tend to be fired, no? So that will certainly help to secure their insurance service.
Do you know why the unions did not hold the state accountable at that time? It was the prime time to do so.
Yes, I think so too. In fact, I think some of us did make noise, and but what is happening is that a lot of unions, lots of the city councils are represented mostly by the CW, and they're covered by what they call a collective bargaining agreement, and but not all the councils are covered by that agreement. It's only those councils that are perhaps in Belizean and perhaps in Belmopan that are covered, and perhaps, in fact, there might be only 2 councils that are covered by CW in that agreement. And so there are other councils in other parts of the country that have no agreement which covers them. And so therefore it is necessary to have that law, that overarching law, which is going to protect all workers who work in city council as municipal workers. But I think it's particularly disgusting when you look at the law that provides for those persons who work, who are actually politicians. Unlike public officers, for instance, the politicians today, pensions are worked based on 8 years. The average public officer needs to work for 35 years to get qualify for a decent pension, or 15 years. Say 15 years. After 15 years, you get a pension. After 10 years, you get a gratuity. But in the case of the persons who are politicians, all they need to do is work two terms. That's what I mean, and qualify for a full pension, which is equivalent to what we will get after working for 35 years. You know, and so there's a great disparity in the workers, the persons who actually carry out the public service, as opposed to those persons who come who are transient, so to speak. I'll have to service 2 years in Parliament, and entitled to a pension and gratuity after 8 years.
Valid point.
And now you see now that the persons who are working in the town councils and the city councils are even more vulnerable, not necessarily entitled to any of those kind of benefits at all.
Excellent point. Brother Philip or Sister Cynthia Musole, do you recall any similar experiences from the past as it relates to the workers at the councils throughout the country?
Good night.
Good
Yes,
night.
I hear your question, but I have no knowledge or idea. I just joined. I am hearing you all talking about the workers at the city council, but I don't recall having to deal with anything like that. What I would say though, as I was telling you today, that I know that in certain countries, when workers are being laid off or so, they usually...
Sister Pitts, please put your camera on if you could.
Okay. Yes. I was saying that I seem to remember reading that in certain countries, when workers are being declared redundant, they are usually offered some type of training or some type of skills. They are given the opportunity. So even though it might be legal, you know, that you reach your retirement age, you are not just given your money, your lump sum, and you are waved away. The employers usually show some concern, and some type of skill training is offered. I don't think that is done here in Belize. If anyone knows that is done, could they say? But I've never heard of it. And it shows a certain concern for the welfare of the worker. You know, that at least you are thinking about them. You know, they have a little money, but you recognize that is not sufficient.
That's a practical way to show that you care about people. But right now, it's clear that money over people. That's how I would describe it. Can anyone say how long after you are phased out do you get your severance pay? Does the law say how long that should take?
You ask questions where they pain my heart as a representative for workers. I'm not quite sure that the law specify the time period within which you ought to be paid, but I trust you would be aware that because of the politicking that took place a couple months ago with the Public Service Commission, we had several people, many people, waiting for their superannuity benefits and which they couldn't get because the Public Service Commission couldn't meet because the incoming administration was trying to force the current commission to resign, and the approval for your payments come through the commission. And so a lot of people had to wait for months, if not, and some were already on the waiting list. And so you had people who had reached retirement age who went through months without a single copper coming in as income. And so I don't know if the law states, but I don't think the law states that you ought to be paid within a specific time. I mean, the way how I think the system was set up is that before you even reach the retirement age, that you're supposed to fill out certain forms, send them in. So by the time your retirement age going a week or two, you're supposed to get your money. But unfortunately, politics again, like I said, and again, only the poor people continue to suffer. So as we speak, I understand that those people were treated with priority when the committee started meeting, and understand that they're meeting constantly now. So I trust and I'm hoping that they're no longer people who have reached the retirement age and are unable to get their benefits.
Sister Ginger has her hand up. Go ahead, sister. Mic is not on.
Please unmute, Sister
Hi.
Agnes.
You can hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Okay. As far as I understand, when it comes to the pension and gratuity regulations, for the ordinary public officer, there is no deadline for you to pay them. What they ask is that if you know you're becoming or soon to reach the retirement age of 55, 1 year in advance, you should be preparing all documents that is needed within the file to be sent up to your AO, the administrative officers in the ministry, in order for them to properly prepare the file to send it to the Treasury Department so that the gratuity section can prepare the process or starts the process so that when you reach the retirement age of 55, you can be paid the day following the date of the day you becomes 55. So if I was to be 55 tomorrow, then I would be paid Monday. So that is what the regulations tells. But when it comes to the politicians now, there's a specific 3 months period after leaving the office whereby the politicians are supposed to be paid within that time frame. And I think that is really unjust when it comes to our regular public officers.
That's a big reveal. Thanks, sis. I agree. Anyone has anything else they'd like to share, you may do so in the text. Tonight we're talking about the Belize City Council phased out retirement plan of 53 of their employees who are ages 55 and older. Mecca asked, because I know some people in the room over 55, and asking one thing about 55 as the retirement age.
Definitely too young. Because I think that at 50, you have at 55, the way I view it, it is another lifetime you have before you. And the way I view it when it comes to the public servants, you have the opportunity then to do what you really want to do. Because I think a lot of people are in the public service, not because they really chose to be a public officer, but because we live in a country where the opportunities to, or at least I should say in the earlier days. Now I think it is a bit different, with the opportunities being given to young people now, the occupations are wider or more, I would say, but in the past, there was not much choice. And so you join the public service, and at 55, you begin to think, well, this is my opportunity to do what I want to do. And so it is early 55, and I think that it can be pushed to a older age.
Anyone else would like to share about that? I said those who are 55 and older because they will be talking from experience. But the question is open to everyone. What are your thoughts on the retirement age being changed from 55 years? What would you suggest and why?
But on the contrary, though, it could also be used as a means of incentivizing the private sector, because having had the experience in public service, if persons were to come out of the public service and use their service experience and their knowledge and their wealth to generate more employment, it could be a positive thing for the country. But it would need to be a program which has to be encouraged, because somehow it seems to be that in this country one is discouraged from being independent. And so if in fact it could be used in a way in which the public or the country could benefit from that person's service, like for instance, perhaps professional persons who leave early and then start to create little industries or perhaps little businesses, consultancies and so forth. It could be a win for the public. It could be a win also for the country, because that person would have had a little income that he can rely on a monthly basis to be able to perhaps sustain him. But also at the same time, he could then generate some ideas to employ that person. So I think it could be a positive thing. But certainly the way it is right now, it isn't working like that. And there's a cry, in my opinion. There is a demand for, or there is that desire by persons who are working in public service to want to go on and work further, because if in fact there's no plan afterwards, then they end up not necessarily living very, very long. I know several who have passed away recently. They have passed away because sometimes they get bored, they have nothing to do at all. There's no plan really and truly for them. And so it had to look at that light, no? Thanks.
Thanks for your contribution. Irvin Zelaya said in the chat group, maybe the age could be pushed up to 60 years. Go ahead, Brother Dean.
I think I have no problem with the retirement age of 55. However, I don't think it should be mandatory. I think, and I support exactly what Brother Hubert said, that at the age of 55, a lot of us would want to do our own thing, consultancy, perhaps getting to some farming, do something. But there are those who would want to go on up until perhaps, and can go on up until the age of 60 or even 65. I think that the pensions or the retirement age is supposed to be amended to allow those who would like to retire at age 55 to do so. However, it should also provide for those who would like to go to age 60 or 62, as several countries have, for them to be able to go to age 60 and 62. However, I would like to also see a provision in there that when you reach a 60 or 62, whatever we agree to, that you cannot come back, and stifle the growth or the growth and the succession growth of other employees. I think what we're seeing right now with this couple hundreds of contract workers who in the public sector, the government is saying they can't do anything, they can't do without them. Now, which is pure nonsense, because people dead every day. And while I would never wish death on anybody, I am saying that if that was to come to one of these so-called important contract employees, the business of the day wouldn't stop. I can tell you that for this year alone, I understand the Auditor General is supposed to go. I don't know if they have identified a successor. The Accountant General is supposed to go, and the conversation is already that they may have to give her a contract, because apparently no bright people or no competent people is within the Treasury Department. Now here we have an Accountant General who everybody know when they reach the retirement age, and you're telling me that nobody in the Ministry of Finance saw it fit to ensure that there was an assistant in place to take over, that we will now have to bring back somebody at the highest point on the scale and pay her a gratuity as well. There is the issue of which other big name I understand is going. But the financial secretary, I think the good gentleman probably they approached the age of 70. And if he has not already surpassed that, and I'm not saying they're doing a terrible job. I'm just saying that they're not doing the best job, and that we keep with these excuses that there is no one to take up or to succeed them. But what I'm saying is, or to end my point is, allow people to leave at 55 if they choose to, but give them the option to go to 60 or 60, 62. I don't think that we should have people within the public service beyond the age of 62. I just think that we need to, we should promote growth and development within the public service to ensure that quality service continue to be afforded.
Respect. We'll take one more comment. I see Sister Ginger has her hand up, and Brother Irvin in the chat group said many young workers complain that when workers reach their retirement age, they don't want to leave, so it affects their upward mobility. He said so it goes both ways, I think. Go ahead, Sister Ginger.
Okay, I would say it goes both ways also, because as my president would tell you, this is a subject that I am very passionate about since I've worked in the section of gratuity and pension for the past 2 years and change. I think we should be given the option of retiring until 60. And because like the teachers, they are to be retired at 55, but they can seek approval from the Teaching Service Commission or the GG in order for them to continue work until 60, depending if their medical condition is suitable for them to, or fitted for them to be qualified enough to stay in the position. But if they reach 58 or 59 and decide that they want to retire, then they can do so based on their own choice. Now, on the other hand of that now, within the 2 years of experience being in this section, I believe that the 55 is quite suitable for public officers to retire, because I have seen a vast amount of public officers when they reaches the ages of 45 and 48, you can see a deterioration within the file, meaning medically, just giving up on the service and having marital issues and things like that, the reasons why they would prefer to come off before the 55. That would be an early retirement, which will still entitle them to a gratuity and a pension, just as if you reach the 55 threshold. So to me, it goes both ways, depending on how the public officer would feel in order for them to continue the service to 60. But I think the 55 is quite okay enough based on the 2 years experience and seeing the vast amount of public officers file passes through me.
Respect. This has definitely been a robust conversation tonight, and we have another minute before it's 8 o'clock. You made a very good point, Brother Dean, about the contract workers. And there were some reveals you did about people who are in the pipeline to retire this year, Brother Dean, referring to the Auditor General, the Accountant General, and possibly the Financial Secretary. So if there is not any pressing comment or concern before we close out tonight, I will go ahead and give Brother Dean an opportunity to say his final thoughts.
Okay, I want to read something here for Sister Pitts. Not necessarily giving her some assignment, but I think I just want to share this with her as a legally trained individual. Let me see where it is. And of course, this won't come as a surprise to Sister Agnes because she is fully aware. But Sister Pitts, I don't know if you heard my comments earlier about the amendment 40, SI 40 of 2001. All right, if you look at SI 40 of 2001, and this is something that we're hoping to have a conversation with the Attorney General with, whereby, and I'll read directly from a termination letter. It says your service period is 11 years and 8 months. You are also entitled to benefits as per the labor laws, Pension Amendment Act 40 of 2001, which states, amends Pension Act declares offices of open vote workers to be pensionable offices entitled to the same pensions and gratuities as offices of the permanent establishment. Repeals Regulation 17A of 29. Now, I just want to leave this with you, Sister Pitts, and if you're able to join us next week, sorry, I'd like to hear a comment on that, because we also, contrary to that, and that is, by the way, signed by the CEO in the Ministry of Health and Wellness, and this is, and she has dismissed several people in this capacity and giving them this reassurance that they're entitled to their benefits because they're over 10 years. But we also received a communication from the Accountant General who is saying you're not due a penny, because this amendment speaks to retirement shall be granted on his retirement or resignation, and it does not speak to termination. So we have hundreds of people out there who were recently dismissed as open vote workers who cannot collect a single penny. And as I was stating earlier in the show, we're now seeking legal advice to take these matters to court because the AG refused to pay these people, despite the CEOs in these different ministries saying they're due their superannuity benefits, or in this case, their severance payments, not or gratuity. I know we're out of time, Yaya, so I just wanted to throw that out there for Sister.
So you're giving me work then?
I don't want to say yes, but you know.
What are you doing? You're in your corral me? You're corralling me?
Well, I mean, we could talk off the table, you know. I tell you, I look for legal advice. Well,
you're looking for free legal advice?
Well, I mean, listen to me. Yeah, send me Sister Pitt's number when the show done.
That's not for you to self there, right there.
Please do, Sister Pitts. Link me 65110. Please write it down. 65110.
I will consider, but I don't promise anything. I don't like this corralling thing.
I like open packing. Thanks everyone who participated tonight. Please tell others about our weekly Thursday night reasonings. We're no longer putting the meeting ID or passcode for Zoom on the flyer because I've learned that that's how hackers access meetings. And so it's the same Zoom meeting ID and passcode will be used for a total of 15 episodes. Tonight is episode 7. So it'll be good for the other 8. Invite others. Can you mute her, Trisha? And so, thanks, Trisha. And so, yes, please invite others to watch it at their convenience on YouTube. You may subscribe. Thank you so much, Sister Trisha, for all your assistance. I don't know if you're able to bring up that picture before we leave, Sister Trisha, of the employees of the Belize City Council who are being phased out because they're 55 years and older before we exit tonight's show. It's 8:04. I'm giving Sister Trisha some time to see if she can show us a picture of the employees from the Belize City Council who will be phased out.
She wouldn't be able to show it, Sister Yaya, because she was having internet problems. So
okay,
transfer the host to me.
No, oh, no problem. Good. Okay, well, that's it for tonight, folks, at 8:04. Thanks everyone who joined us and for contributing, for listening, for sending your messages on the chat group. We hope to be here next Thursday night. Our guest, every other week, we have a guest. Our guest next Thursday night is our brother Hubert Enriquez. He's our guest next Thursday night. So, every other Thursday is a guest, and then the following 2 Thursdays, Brother Dean and I have reasonings in the first half hour. Tell others about it. Thanks so much, everyone. Remember, wear your mask, adequate mask, wash your hands with soap and water for 20 seconds, keep 6 feet apart, and yes, stay informed. Until next Thursday. Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Good night, everybody. Stay safe.